Good evening, viewers, and welcome to what is supposed to be the first edition of Guyanese Critic Live for 2022. I've actually have to start in 2021 because today, as my header states, MPs in Parliament tried to steal the MACE and were very disruptive and try to stop the government from passing a bill that is supposed to benefit Guyanese people. I was not there. So with me I have a minister within the Ministry of Public Works, Deodat Indar, and Minister of Labor, Mr. Joe Hamilton. And they who were there on the ground are going to explain to us exactly what transpired. I am going to ask questions to make sure the people have clarity as to what would cause this kind of vulgarity in Parliament. Ministers, good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to bring clarity and transparency to Guyanese.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having us here this evening. Whilst we are here with you, I can say that on all television stations, actually, you have 2 or 3 ministers doing the same thing that we are doing here with you, so that we can properly overnight inform the nation about what transpired in the National Assembly.
Can you give me, from your perspective, being a seasoned politician, have you experienced anything as such before?
No, not at all. But what the opposition they were attempting to do is this. They have worked it out, and Guyanese must understand what is happening. They have worked it out that once this bill is passed, it allows the regulation and the framework to ensure that the proceeds from oil come into the public treasury. And that allows the government to start utilizing funds from oil revenue to expand and develop this country via infrastructure work, more housing, healthcare delivery, educational delivery, social service delivery. And they know that once that happens, already they know that they will never again be back in power. But Guyanese, you think about it. We have not, that is the People's Progressive Party said it, we have not started to utilize oil revenue to do all the things that you have seen us do in less than a year and a half. So just cast your minds, when we start to utilize oil revenue for the development and expansion of this country. The more technical issues of the bill, my colleague Deodat Indar will deal with it, Minister Indar, because he was close to the activities of the framework and putting the bill together. I will attempt to deal with the political issues surrounding what transpired. The other important issue, and let me say this to the public, I said it earlier tonight, and the people who support PNC and APNU and all the leaders in APNU must understand, you cannot intimidate the People's Progressive Party. They must understand that. I'm repeating it to say that. The party of which is the bedrock of this government survived for 70 years, outlived the British Empire, outlived Forbes Burnham and his dictatorship, outlived Desmond Hoyt with more fire and slow fire, outlived Granger trying to steal in elections. So I don't know why these nincompoops think that they could somehow intimidate us. They could seek to have us cow. That will not happen. That cannot happen. We were elected to govern, and govern we will, with or without the opposition.
Minister, I think you're on point in terms of the the political aspect of it and how you're expressing the sentiments of your PPP comrades and ministers in government. As you said, you'll not be cowed. Minister Indar, if you would afford us the opportunity of having an understanding as to what is this bill about, how the process which was sought or gone through before this bill came to Parliament, why, since this was the rectification of ramification to an existing bill, if I'm to be corrected, why would there have been a need to correct a bill? Just give us a little understanding from the technical perspective.
As a critic, today is actually a historic day for the People's Progressive Party government, led by Dr. Fanali. We have promised in the manifesto two things. I mean, with respect to the oil and gas, two significant things. One is local content legislation, which passed this morning, and two is the repeal and the replace of the Natural Resources Fund. So there's a reason why, I'll get to the Natural Resource Fund, but let's talk about the local content. Both of these bills were tabled on the 15th of December. The local content bill that we passed today was 5 years overdue, bro. 5 years overdue. These people, I was the leader of the private sector. When I first made the call, you can check it. I first made the call for two things. One is local content legislation, and the other one is a sovereign wealth fund legislation that protects the oil revenue and in a transparent way. Today, the local content legislation passed after a rigorous period. Now, let me just tell you, the previous government under Granger had two policies, woefully deficient. We complained on them over and over and over, woefully deficient. They never signed none of them or put it, even the policy they didn't put. Frustration in the private sector because the oil and gas industry is booming and is expanding, and you have a massive amount of Trinidadians and Americans and people from all other nations coming here, winning contracts, and Guyanese with them out wet, looking at that every single day. So this bill, this local content bill, is to fix that mischief, and it's ring-fence 40 different areas of services, which include rental of office, warehousing, immigration services, janitorial services, environmental services, food supply, legal services, accounting services, you name it. 40 different areas is now ring-fenced for Guyanese.
Minister Indar, just to, most of the persons who are viewing us is the layman, the man on the ground who wants to understand. And your government has claimed that they're working with the manifesto with the intention of helping the layman on the ground, the common man.
Yes.
So to make sure the common man understands, local content is a policy that will...
It's a law now. We just
law now. So today, it is now a law that has been created by this administration.
Correct.
And put in place, passed into law, like laws that stop you from doing illegal things, stop you from smoking marijuana and everything. This law is it's called the local content policy.
Local content law.
Law, local content law, is now in place to protect Guyanese people and businesses.
Correct. You said it good. Okay. The only thing, there is no policy here. You can't break policy. You can break law. So that is why we want to make sure we legislate this requirement. Because let me tell you straight, the private sector and the people of this country literally was begging for 5 years for this legislation. Begging. The previous government, they did nothing. They had they sit on their hands. 5 years. They didn't do anything. Now we pass it. They go through it with a fine teeth comb and tell you need a comma here, you need a...
For clarity, Minister, this law that now is in place to protect Guyanese was not put in place before.
Never.
There was nothing to protect Guyanese.
Never.
And there are businesses here presently capitalizing on that.
Correct. Foreign businesses.
They will now be acting illegally.
Yes.
If they go against this law.
They have 1 year to get the house in order.
So they have a year now.
To get the house in order, the Ministry of Natural Resources have to put a secretariat in place. and they have to create a local content register. Now, let me just say this, right? Before, there is the resource offshore, there is the Guyanese people. This law comes in the middle to connect Guyanese people with the resources. So you directly get businesses from the operator, licensee, tier 1 contractors, and so on, right? So they got to come to you for businesses in the 40 areas of the ring fence. Now, the law have a lot more on it, but what I'm saying to you that we passed this law today, and then after we passed this law, we went to the other aspect of the legal architecture, which is the Natural Resource Fund. That fund now doesn't deal with the private sector to some extent. It deals with the money that you're getting from the we call it royalties, goes straight into a bank account, a lockbox system, and then you have to draw it down.
Can I say, I'm ignorant to the facts.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm ignorant to the facts like the layman.
Yeah.
Is this similar to the 18 million that the APNU would have received?
Well, this corrects that. So if you bring money as an oil company and give any public official, this law makes it illegal. Because the money all receipts from oil and gas operation, whether it's rents, royalty, bonuses, signature bonuses, anything to deal with the oil and gas operation, have to come into this fund. And you cannot draw any money from this fund if you don't go to the parliament, where them guys, the opposition, as I just told you, they were looking at colon and semicolon today in the local content bill. You tell me, when you go to spend this oil money and take it to parliament, they're not going to scrutinize it? That is the ultimate place for scrutiny. So this big hullabaloo is nothing but a mosaic they try to paint so that they can be able to stall this legislation. So as soon as Ashley Singh get up, so the chief whip on the other side get up and ask for the bill to go and select committee. Which bill critic ever come out to the select committee? All of them die a natural death in the air. So what they want to do, and they tried it with the local content legislation earlier in the day, to try to put it in this we call select committee, because they just don't want it passed. They never wanted local content. They frustrated the private sector, and I guess that is why they're in opposition now. The private sector is glorified with this bill. Glorified. It's not a man, woman, and child who don't like that bill. Because it gives Guyanese a fighting chance to enjoy their own resources. And the NRF bill, which is the subsequent legislation that they tried to block just now, that Annette tried to go and thief this mace, it looked gold, like gold and so. She tried to go thief the mace to stop the process. They tried whistling like if they're selling ice block and fluty to disrupt the place, walk around in the wells of the parliament where they're not supposed to go. You know, all of these things just to stall the legislation.
Minister, it's very unfortunate that when we're supposed to have what is a serious dissemination of educational information, we got to stop a little bit, and I want to pause for about 15 minutes, and I want to talk about the comical thing that I see. You talk about the mace. No, what though? I thought, this is my opinion, I forgive me for being ignorant of the happenings in Parliament. After I see this, I get excited. I got to go read up now and learn about Parliament and how it works. Yeah. So I look at the thing, and I say, man, and they're going to lash somebody in the head with a bat. So I said, somebody got a bat. So when I say anything, the next guy with the next to me said, no, it's not a bat. I said, no, man, that one thing like what Hanuman has got. You understand? I said, no, she got the Hanuman, like he left the thing in there. Right? And she decided to lash the Speaker of the House in his head. Right? Now, I looking at it, and the guy said, no, it's a mace. I said, so if this is removed from there, why would they want to remove that? Explain to me, if they remove that, help me understand what would have happened.
The debate can't go forward, but let Joe answer that. Joe's
no parliamentary action can happen. The mace is the symbol to say that the parliament is in session. When the speaker comes into the chamber, the sergeant of arms comes with the mace, and whilst the speaker is calling the parliament session to order, he puts down the mace. Importantly, if you look at some of the comical things, they deliberately squatted in front of that area, most of the women. That was attempting to deny the mace from being placed where it's supposed to be placed so that the parliament session can start. The speaker, utilizing innovation, kept the mace on his desk, because in some jurisdiction, that is where the mace is at, on the desk of the speaker. And so, whilst they were trying to disrupt Ashley Singh, and as Indar spoke to ring fencing, we ring fenced at Ashley Singh, because for us, the bill must be passed tonight. And so we were not paying attention to their obstructionist behavior. They attempted in the early stages when Ashley got up to speak, Minister Singh, to try to disrupt, and they came close to what you would call threatening behavior, because based on the security laws and the laws, if you're in a man face so many feet or something like that, basically.
But outside of that, we are in a COVID-19 period.
Yeah.
And they're supposed to keep the
paid
distance.
no attention to that. Most of them had no mask on at all, and they were coming to attempt to, and we ring fence Ashley Singh. So after they couldn't get their way with the minister, they moved to go and try to intimidate the speaker. The speaker was ring fence in some regards, and he was allowing the debate to continue with all the foolishness. And therefore they recognize now that they were not getting their way. So the next thing to do is to stop the debate. That is why Annette, and you would note, they chose Annette. It's two persons they would have likely chosen to do that, either Annette or David Patterson. You know, they have the history of shining gold bangles and bracelets, and so you know, she really,
It's an attraction to
these two
to shiny objects.
to shiny objects, gold-looking objects. So she decided they're gonna bring. Of course, they decided that the marshal, the field marshal of all of this that was happening, is one senior counsel Rosedale Ford. He was the man who was adjusting the play, you know. So when they snatched that mace, the speaker again, you see, when you're dumb, you're dumb. They never understood that another mace exists in the parliament, even though it was small as that. So the speaker now resorted to the mace to continue the session. And of course, that one is more smaller, so it's Andier. And he hold on to it with his dear life, whilst they're still continuing their chant. After a while, they left. So all that has happened was total failure, as normal always fails.
Two questions I want to ask Minister Hamilton. I have lived through the opposition as a government who attempted to rig an election, who attempted to hold on to power at all costs. I really and truly am supposed to look at things from a perspective and give the information to the people. But I'm known for being very vocal, so I give my opinions and people ask for my take. What did yourself and administration expect from a PNC-led opposition?
Just what has happened here. We were prepared we discussed this. We were not caught off guard.
Okay.
We expected what transpired would have transpired.
Would you say this is hopeful opposition leader, now leader of the PNC, Aubrey Norton's directive, since
yes,
he's been very...
I was going there to make the point that information suggests that one of Mr. Norton's play is to create this condition so that some of the people who he wants out of the parliament, the speaker sanction them and disbar, because the speaker can. People can be suspended from the parliament, people can be ejected out of the parliament. And if you follow what was happening, you would know the speaker was calling names of MPs. That was deliberate, because what comes next is sanction. because he has identified people who were disrupting the parliament. And so I suspect Mr. Norton would like for many of those to be gotten rid of via the instrument of the speaker.
So although the people of this country would have suffered as a result of this bill not going through, this might not even be for the people of the country. The people of the country might be pawns in a PNC political game. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yes. Because they have their own issue. But the wider issue I alluded to when I started my comments is they know. Listen to me, they're dumb, but they're not that stupid, I can tell you. They have worked it out that never again, based on all the, what you just mentioned, the election thievery attempted and so, that they have no chance in hell getting back into government. Now, the fact that oil proceeds, the government will be in a position via the National Resource Fund to start drawing down on the oil proceeds. And let the public understand, the PPC civic government has not touched oil money to do none of the things we have done over the last year now. We are trying to, because our commitment to the people was that we will only do that when we have this framework that determines how you utilize these funds. And that is what we are attempting to do. And so they know that utilizing the funds that will come out of the oil and gas industry, will create an expansion, a rapid expansion in this country. And let me point out, you would note that today Aubrey Norton assembled his largest picket exercise with about 15 or 30 to 20%. The point is, critic, is this. People are concerned about their welfare and their economic development. You are on the road and you know what people talk about daily is how my life will be improved. So people are not caught up in the foolishness anymore about some leader who is visionless, seeking to lead them into demonstrations to what end, when they could be utilizing their time seeking to take care financially of themselves and their families, seeking to build their house, seeking to raise enough money so that they can send their children to school in a proper way. That is people's concern. Welfare and economic development. Healthcare facilities, educational facilities. So the APNO FC, they seem not to understand. And let me make this point to people so they understand the dilemma the PNC they have. Look, the PPP over the period has made available housing and lands to many persons, critic, who for the first time in their generation ever owned a house, since the parents came here on the slave ship or on the Indian ship. And people must know that. And so, when a man don't have a house, it's easy for some wild politician to influence them to go and burn somebody else. But when you have one, you think twice, because just like how you think you could burn somebody else, somebody could burn you. When you don't have a vehicle, it's easy to vandalize somebody's vehicle. But when you have one. So, the economic development of people have created conditions that nullifies the type of politics that the PNC still want to continue. That is why they're not getting takers. That is why you would note, and you're around more than I do when they have these things, is the normal suspects will come out. You, I'm sure, are acquainted with many of the faces that will come out. It is only...
it's come down to what I've seen as now the opposition protest. It's come down, what happens, and I don't think Guyanese are understanding what they're looking at. The opposition protests
As they call
That
it.
is what they did in Parliament today. What normally happens is politicians lead protests. So you have people who are dissatisfied who come to a protest and are led by a leader who tell them you have been wrong, this is that and that, and then thousands of people come and protest. Now the only body protesting is the opposition who directly benefits from creating confusion. I don't know how, but it seems that it's some kind of turn on with the opposition. I'm trying to get a better understanding. I'm trying to get, when you guys say we're coming over, say here, call some of these guys, let me get their take also, for them to explain why they act in the manner that they do. Because we are supposed to be working, it is of my opinion, from the layman perspective, that there is enough resources in this country to go about for every Guyanese. Fortunately for us, we have found oil resources, natural resources that dwarfs other countries' resources. And these are countries that are doing well for themselves with large populations. We have a very small population, have had a large oil find. And if our politicians could just come together and have a better understanding of how we'll work together for everybody to benefit, this would be a very nice country.
But that is good thinking. That is what we would like to see. Because the local content bill that deals with that is for Guyanese. It protects Guyanese. The definition of a local company has changed to beneficial ownership of 51% and more, owned by Guyanese, and that makes you qualify to be a local indigenous company. In addition to that criteria, there's another criteria that says that 75% of your management staff must be Guyanese, or 90% of your non-managerial staff must be Guyanese. So what it does, it creates the substance over form. So the legal form of a man just jump off a plane and come and register business by some lawyer and have his address as his business address, no longer for you to qualify as Guyanese company. You have to have actual employees of managerial skill. You have to have 51% have to be owned by the Guyanese, and this is voting rights shares. So what I'm saying to you is that this law is good for Guyanese, and you're right that we're supposed to work together, and it is designed to help all Guyanese. But what you find today is not normal thuggish behavior. It's not Bajan or blackguard behavior. It went a little above that. It transgressed that. It went to anarchy, and it's a malignant kind of behavior. It will only get worse. So the people of this country need to understand that that kind of behavior will continue and get worse. But we want to say to the people that we don't scare easily. That kind of behavior there, we don't scare easily. We went through that, as Joe said earlier, when they was trying to rig. But that time they had the police and all the state apparatus at their disposal. But we still didn't scare. I was in the room, I went back to do an interview in the room to expose them. And a number of them came to me. Risedale 40 came trying to shout me down when I was talking to the cameraman. Ganesh Mahipal, the chief whip, a couple more of them tried to encircle me and drown me out with the noise. But I don't scare easily. And all of the ministers, the cabinet, the MPs, our leaders in the people, we don't scare easily. We are not going to be intimidated either. So we got to make that clear. We're going to continue doing the people's business, and no one is not going to stand in the way. Now, I just want to say this to you, Critic. A lot of people start to push on the head now. A lot of them now, I see the head now come up. And they're talking, some of them endorsing the behavior of these people in Parliament. And this is atrocious behavior. It is mad people behavior. Endorsing that behavior because they have a difference in what they think that an NRF legislation should be. But the means can't justify the end. Regardless of who you are, the means cannot justify the end. That kind of behavior is not suited for oil and gas nation. The world is looking at us. You know this. Joe, you know this. The whole country knows this. The amount of people coming here to look at investment, when they look at that behavior in Parliament, they say, what do you think they will say? Is that where I'm going to put my hard-earned investment dollars? They're creating this kind of disruption and instability so that it will stave off that, but it won't work. It won't work. So we want to make sure that we stay focused. The NRF bill has passed, the local content bill has passed. And as Joe said, what we're going to spend this oil money on? things to deal with capital formation and social formation. You want to make sure that you put capital works, infrastructure, drainage. Look, little rainfall, the whole city flood. The whole region 3, region 5 flood. You gotta build out adaptation measures. We have a whole system of medical system where we don't capture data of patients and have all of those things, all of the high-end equipment. So our people deserve that too. Is only the North Americans or the Europeans deserve first world healthcare? We deserve that too. We deserve first world education too. We deserve proper infrastructure, roads, bridges, ports. We deserve those things. And you can get those things in a sustainable way. Mind you, their beef is that we're going to draw down all of the money in the first year. But what they don't tell you is that the second, third, fourth, fifth year, the percentages are sliding from 50 to 25 to 5 to 3. So all the rest of the money that you haven't drawn down stays in the fund as heritage so that you can transfer to the next generation and next generation after that. It is called intergenerational mapping, and that is in the legislation. But you know the usual politician. They're going to tell you what you want to hear, they rile you up, and tell everybody who to blame for the misery. And that is what they've been doing.
One of the things that was done today, that was very glaring, and I saw it across the media, there is something that protesters were asking for outside to be in the legislation.
The Santiago Principle.
The Santiago
It's
Principle.
there.
And it is in the legislation.
It is there.
How can the opposition justify their behavior, their clearly lacking of understanding?
Lacking, I think, is malicious. There's a term for it, is enthusiastic corruption of the public good. That is what it is. Because it is clear in the language of the bill that this legislation conforms to the Santiago Principle of transparency and accountability. In addition to that, the accounting of the money is done using International Financial Reporting Standards, which is one of the best global accounting standards. They also have the external audit have to audit this money. Nobody can infringe audit and reporting. The reporting goes back to Parliament too. You have to lay the reports in Parliament for scrutiny. Before you spend it all out, you got to take it to Parliament and debate it before you draw down any money. So all of this thing that they're talking about, it's not that they didn't read the legislation. They know the legislation will only do good for the people of Guyana, and PPP gonna look good, so they want to stall. What do you think they're suggesting to put it in select committee for? You don't want to say something?
No, that is it. All that is happening here is politics through stupidity, because nothing they have done will redound to their benefit. Nothing that they have done, because whatever they do, they always fail. Because in their planning, they never take it to the logical conclusion. And like they failed with the attempt to rig election, again, tonight they failed. They wanted today, they came to Parliament today to stall two important pieces of legislation. To stall the government work, that is what. To stall the government being able to be in a position to give goods and services to the Guyanese people. And when that does not happen, then they could blame the government for being inefficient. That is what is playing out here.
Minister Hamilton, what I saw today in Parliament, I could liken to a stabbing for $120 that I saw a video. I don't know if you guys saw the video. I could liken to vulgarity in a dance. I could liken to many things across Guyana that we see on social media. I'm talking about videos that people get in trouble with the law for. Was there any illegal act committed in Parliament today?
Well, trying to thief the MACE, I suspect, is an illegal act.
Yeah, and I think coming into the wells.
Coming into the wells, because you're supposed to be echoing in your seats and chanting all the things. Okay? The other thing is, one guy maliciously, the man was just elected chairman of the PNC, he maliciously disconnected
The PA system.
all the PA systems in the Parliament. So that is tampering, I suspect, the people, the lawyers, and the policemen, I suspect they will be. But those are matters that the Speaker, he has to deal with in conjunction with the security services. But what transpired there today is it is not politics, it is desecration. That is what happened. They desecrated a treasured, cherished place for democracy and the democratic culture. But of course, they are strangers to democracy and democratic culture. So that is what they did today. And of course, every one of those people are fighting for relevance within the realm of their party, most of the PNC. You have to understand, you have a set of people who are determined to go to the extreme to prove that I am more worthy, more so with the type of leader that the PNC just elected, the blah blah man, as the vice president said. So they want to be seen as being the most militant, the most crazy. And that is what was playing out. You have people who went deliberately into the crazy zone to desecrate the National Assembly. That is what happened today. It is not the normal. We have had rambunctious times in the parliament. I've been in the parliament since 1998. So, on all sides, government and opposition, on both sides, PVP, MP, and PNC. So I have experienced all kinds of situation in the National Assembly, but this year, nothing compared to this. This was this desecration of the National Assembly. This was an attempt to intimidate the Speaker of the National Assembly. I would say to attempt to assault the Speaker of the National Assembly. For that matter, there are pictures on social media so that shows parliamentary staff who were assaulted by member of parliament from the opposition. Those matters the Speaker will have to deal with the people. The issue of sanctions, the Speaker will have to deal with. What I will say to the public here, we of the People's Progressive Party Civic, we were elected to govern this country, and govern we will, whether with the opposition or without the opposition. We made commitments to the people of this country via a manifesto, and we will do everything possible to ensure we fulfill those commitments. At the end of the day, and you would hear the president always making the point, it is about delivering goods and service to people. It's about ensuring we improve their welfare and their standard of living. And all the things they were trying to block today is not us, why is they attacking us, but basically the people of Guyana. Because if the two bills didn't get passed, the people of Guyana will suffer and would have suffered. And all the clamor we want to get into oil and gas and so, we would have had no instrument to participate via a law. Like Indara said, 5 years, we had no instrument to participate other than talk, other than crying that Trinidadians and Filipinos and whoever coming. I'm Minister of Labor, and I have had numberless of reports about people not receiving equal pay for equal jobs in the oil and gas industry. But there was no legal instrument to deal with that. Today I can deal with that because the local content legislation addressed that matter. About equal pay for equal job. So you understand, on the labor front, among all other fronts, the local content legislation addressed those issues. And the National Resource Fund.
Guyanese laborers.
Yes.
Working with a foreign company.
Yes.
Are now entitled by law to equal pay
for equal work.
And it deals with expats and repats too. So, Guyanese can come here, they be trained, they are sent in some other jurisdiction, they are deemed an expat then. But then if they come back to Guyana, based on the current setting, they are given Guyanese salary, which is different from an expat. So the repat, with all of this skill, why do I have to come back to Guyana when my pay is going to be cut? Now is equal pay for equal job.
Another important thing that the public must know is that David Patterson on the instance of the opposition, attempted to bring an amendment to exclude citizens of this country. The amendment was seeking to say that only Guyanese by birth is entitled to participate.
So Guyanese who would have
left and so want to come back.
Yeah, all the diaspora people would not have been counted.
A lot of people who have experience
would not have been counted. They would not be considered as a Guyanese company or a Guyanese citizen to participate. If a person went overseas and they lived there with their children, and it is unconstitutional, but they still were attempting to have that.
They were trying
the law, the constitution, specified who is a Guyanese citizen.
And the Immigration Act as well.
Right, specified. But they were attempting to insert in the local content legislation, debarring hundreds of thousands of Guyanese to participate in the oil and gas industry, to earn and to work.
It was a foolish piece of...
You understand me? So Guyanese by naturalization, marriage, Guyanese born overseas would not have qualified. Only Guyanese by birth, only those of us who were born at Georgetown Hospital or Woodlands, according to David Patterson and APNU, AFC, would have qualified to participate in the oil and gas.
Obviously, we rejected that.
And we rejected that.
We rejected it. It came up for a vote, and we rejected it also.
But I'm just trying to enlighten people. These people who think who tonight must be there around trying to talk about how they have your interest at heart. What they were attempting to do to exclude all the diaspora people could not have participated. All the children who born overseas would not have participated. The other important thing in this attempted to inject is this issue about people only qualify for and you must help me here, to something only 3 years contract.
Yes, they want to limit the life of the contract.
Of a contract.
Yeah, so listen, this resource is Guyanese owned. And you can't limit the life of a contract when somebody is invested in the business and got a contract. That is a private sector arrangement between the supplier and the vendor and the client. You can't stick your hand in those things.
As government.
As government, the opposition wants to have laws. Let me get it clear here. The opposition wants to put in place a law that limits the contractual time between a Guyanese citizen, a Guyanese business, and...
No, I won't call it a law. The law was tabled by the PPP. They saw the law and wanted to insert
an amendment
to it that will limit the contract life of a Guyanese company when they do get work.
Only up to 3 years.
So if me as a citizen, they be selling company white man, ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil said, Bano, me you good, I let you style. I think I want you to do this business with me for the rest of your life. They want
only 3 years.
By natural desire, they come in and insert themselves to make sure that only 3 years you can have a contract.
The life of the
Why does the government need to play a role
in that?
In that area?
That's the question. That is their behavior about government overreach. That's the problem that we have with the NRF too. The Minister of Finance under the previous NRF that they passed during the no confidence, after the no confidence, the government has fallen in 2019, 3rd of January. They passed that legislation. And all of these people were crying now about the legislation we bring into Parliament. You didn't hear a word from them. The legislation was passed. It's woefully deficient. There is a sustainable amount inside that nobody can calculate. There are 4 sections that deal with it. And emergency financing. So if you ask 750,000 people to go read that section to say how much you got to draw down, they can't give you an answer.
Minister Nair, since we're on that,
complex and
since
people
we're
don't
on that,
understand it.
Please expound a little more. Now, for the regular citizen to understand, there was a bill.
There was a bill.
There was an existing bill.
Correct.
The PPP, yourself, your administration decided they would reformulate a bill. And that has been passed today.
Yeah.
Give me the differences.
Okay. So The last bill that they had, which they passed out of a period of illegality without any parliamentary opposition.
This is the first problem.
That's the first problem.
This
The second
was a
problem-
bill that was passed
On
When
January
they have
while
authority.
2019.
opposition, when they were in power,
But the
they had fallen.
Yeah, no
This is
confidence.
after
No confidence.
confidence.
2018,
Yes.
December the 21st.
So
Yes.
they're not supposed, under that arrangement in the council, they are not supposed to go pass any major legislation. But they went to parliament, hustily, and get it done. Nevertheless, that system required a macroeconomic committee, right? That the minister got appointed chair. The minister hand was everywhere in the legislation. That he's appointing chair, he got approved stuff, everything got to go back to the minister. This bill that we have put there, and we recognize that one, that is a serious problem. Two, is that the drawdown rules are so complex nobody understands it. That is the second big problem. So we corrected that. What we have done is remove the macroeconomic committee with a board of directors, with about 5 people from the financial sector, business sector, entrepreneurs, somebody from the National Assembly, so that they can have a civil society board.
When you say somebody from the National Assembly, are you suggesting because yourself, you are in the National Assembly?
No.
Opposition?
No MP cannot be. No MP cannot be. There's clear distinction on that. That is what makes this bill so good. So no MP cannot sit as a board, a member of the board. No MP, right? What they said, they wanted a member who is from the private sector. So 5 people that can make up this board. And they say in the legislation clearly who can't sit on this board. And no member of parliament can sit on it. No person with a convicted background can't stay on it. No person that is part of the other 2 committees, which is the investment committee and the public oversight committee, can't sit as a board member. No person that have a conflict of interest, family conflict, with any investment that the fund is in, can't sit on the board. So it excludes a wide range of people and keep government out of the management of the fund. So this board that we put in here, it's really civil society operating this fund, managing the fund.
How does government access that? How does government work with
The
that?
only thing the Minister of Finance has is getting broad directives, broad. Not going to manage the fund. The board is mandated under this new law to manage the fund. The board gets information from the Public Oversight Committee, which is about 9 members, and the Investment Committee, which I think is over 7 members, right? And they're drawn from broad society, all the different places in society, to come together and advise this board, right? So it's managed by, what is the main thing, which is a change in the structure of how the fund is managed and keep out politicians out of it.
Now, Minister Indar, you're telling me the last administration set up thing where the minister there in, most likely this set up in a fashion that they could push in their hand at the bottom and get something. Why would you change that when you could push your hand inside and get something
Because we believe in transparency and accountability. This fund act that we put in is keeping in principle with the Santiago principle, which is transparency and accountability. You have to have good reporting, so you got to make sure that the structure of the bill is in line with those principles. So you can't have a bill that speaks about Santiago principle and then in the mechanics of the bill, you're breaking those principles. It is the entire structure of the bill is seek to deliver transparency and accountability. That's why the reporting side of it is clear. You got to make sure you report to Parliament. You got to take quarterly reports. You got to put on your own reports. You got to make sure that anything that you draw down from the fund or want to draw down from the fund goes to Parliament first. Debate it. Then if it's appropriate, then you have power to draw down the money to go into projects. And there's not any and all projects this thing going into. I told you before. It's into infrastructural works that the country badly needs. It's for the education system, health system that the country badly needs. Adaptation measures in the green. We are building out the green economy with our low carbon development strategy. So you have to do adaptive measures. You know that when rain fall, the whole place flood. We got to put in adaptive, we call mitigation measures and so. How long can we bear with this kind of thing in your economy? No sense to lock up the money there and you can't spend it. You spend some, but you don't spend all. That's, as I said, the drawdown rules start with a high percentage, but they start to slide down in a really rapid way. So you can't draw all of the money that you're collecting. So monies are left into the fund.
Natural Resource Fund.
Yeah.
There's now laws that guide natural resource fund, how it is used, there's a board of 5 persons
Yeah.
that oversees this fund,
Manages the fund.
manages the fund. None of those persons are directly politically aligned.
No, the legislation clearly says, no, you can't be sitting on that board.
Good. You have to be of a certain standing to be a part of this board.
Correct.
All right. So you're suggesting we are going to be looking persons from civil society? How
The whole setup is people from civil society.
the whole setup?
Yes, people with financial background, people with professional background, people of that, you know.
Now, no matter what happens here, there's the fund, an entitlement of all Guyanese, or should be accessible by all Guyanese, and that will be via different projects being done. The opposition still represents a vast amount of Guyanese. How or what role do they play, if any, at all?
Well, I think if they wanted to play a constructive role, they would have done it. Look what happened today. Look what happened today. And let me tell you, you watch the kind of projects that oil revenues will go into. It will be in accordance with what we put in the legislation. Clear as day will be developmental work. Developmental work. So I don't think that they want anything that our government do. They don't want us to look good. Their job is to make us look bad, stymie our work, and stall anything that we want to do. So how do you work with an opposition with that modus operandi? Maybe Joe can answer that. He been in the block a long time.
No one is perfect, Minister Hamilton. But I'm trying to get an understanding of the PPP administration in the past administration erred. No need to get into the details of what they erred. They were out of government by 2015 because of their errors. What holds the PPP accountable as it relates to this fund? I know everybody get it. There are going to be different projects that the PPP is going to invest in. The PPP is working with their manifesto. The president plans to deliver on that manifesto. Nonetheless, we're all human. What happens if some individuals, let's not say the whole PPP, decide to go array? How do we keep the people?
The first thing that
what mechanisms in place for that?
we address, we have in the legislation penalties for people like Jordan, who collected the first $18 million and didn't report it to the nation or the National Assembly.
Jail time of
The law is clear, jail time.
So for the first time, the finance minister now,
go to jail.
unlike what the previous finance minister was able to get away with,
cannot get away.
our finance minister now, if he did that,
he will face the court and pay jail time. And
okay, Raja.
So that is a fundamental thing in the legislation. The other important thing is
and that was not in the previous legislation.
Talk about that.
Okay.
The thing was run by the Minister of Finance. He was the Alpha and Omega based on the bill that they had taken to the Parliament. And that is the reason why he thought they gave him an $18 million gift. He said that publicly.
But that is after many times saying he did not
know about it. But the point is this. You ask how they will play a role, the opposition, as Indar indicated. All the issues regarding the drawdown from the fund will come to the National Assembly for scrutiny and debate. The projects we talk about, all of those things will come there. So they will have their role to play. And the other important issue is the issues about transparency we spoke about. All the projects we will do will be via public tender. So that is how you control, where all the projects, by public tender, people are aware. The other important thing in the bill also, all the monies, you have to account it the nation will know
Yeah.
all the monies that you draw down.
Let me add to what Joe is saying. So in the bill, there's a special section on accounting and reporting. So you talk about accountability. The accounting and reporting is that you gotta first account for the money. It's the competitive nature of bidding. You gotta account for the money. Then you have to report that money. Every cent has to be reported, and those reports are laid in the National Assembly too. So there's no bodies and it's audited by the Auditor General Office. So at the 30th of every year, tax time, you got to make sure that you lay your financials in the Parliament with respect to this fund, or there's penalties attached to that, right? So there is clear guidelines for reporting and accountability. They have quarterly reports also have to be given to the Minister of Finance, who have to report it. You have to make it known that if you receive monies, you got to make it known that monies came into the account and from who. And that goes to the Parliament too. So the accounting and the auditing and the reporting side of this is stringent. It is very stringent.
Are these aspects, the accounting and the transparency aspect, how many components as it relates to transparency and accountability did the PPP infuse in the legislation?
Well, I can tell you, right? The major changes that we have done is with respect to the reporting, as I said, the Santiago Principle, the structure of the board, the structure of the Public Accountability and Oversight Committee. There's a Public Accountability and Oversight Committee that represents people from all walks of life, religious bodies and all kind of things. People from the private sector, labor, all of them. So everybody's seeing this thing. There's nobody can stash nothing here like they did with the 18 million. There's no room for that in here. Everything is clearing up, people watching over it, people from all walks of life watching over that. Right? So there is a Public Accountability and Oversight Committee that made up of 9 members right now, I believe. And it comes from all walks
Minister,
of life.
in there, I'm trying to grapple with what would exactly cause the level of hooliganism experience in Parliament today. Now, you're suggesting you took a bill that was basically the foundation and structure of it was created by the ACNO, the previous administration.
Right.
You infused certain levels of accountability. You brought in different levels of management and oversight. Why then would APNO have a problem? Would the opposition have a problem? The only problem I can see here as a regular man, and if I were the opposition, I would be very much worried, is I spoke to the Vice President in an interview recently about it. The PPP has, or the government has outdone itself. When it was in government for 23 years, it has outdone the PNC administration that had a reign for 28 and 5 years as it relates to direct cash transfer. So the PPP in about 15 months give Guyanese people more money than they themselves ever given 23 years, them and the PNC has ever given in the lifetime of politics in this country. Do you think this is what the opposition is seeing and realizing? If they're giving, when they even got it, money for give yet, what's going to happen?
Well, it is my studied opinion, and I use the word studied opinion because I've looked at it, is that anything that we do that is good for country is bad for the opposition. Sure. Anything that we do that is good for Guyanese people, that means it's bad for the opposition. They don't want to see us do good. And I think that is my studied opinion on this particular thing.
No, but that is the issue I started out making this point. That they are clear that even before having access to this money, as you have said, we have outdone ourselves in the last 15 months. Think about it. Without oil resources, what we have done in 15 months. Some of the things the nation spoke about for decades, we did it in 15 months. Forever, a bypass road was being spoken about. You have one today at least. For one, by the next couple of months, you will have
the other leg.
The other leg. So think about it. Just think about that in 15 months. And our term is a 5-year term. We would have the NRF bill in place. It means now you will have more access to financing and cheap finance, because this is our money. The other money, we have to borrow that money and you pay interest on it. You follow me? So there's a cost.
Some things that have bankrupt a lot of countries.
Right. So what this here is our money that the fund will utilize for development. Look, I said this earlier today, I'm saying again. I believe the APNU member of parliaments, they know that their life has ended as regards getting in the government. And so I believe there are only 3 reasons they stay in parliament. They're there. 1 is to collect the salaries that they collect every month without doing any work. 2, they have access to a duty-free concession. And 3, they could come to the parliament and they have tea, breakfast and dinner. And I will tell you, sometimes when they don't even come into the parliament chamber, you could assure yourself that they will be in the dining chamber.
They've got used to fine dining.
So they're so shameless that they boycott the parliament. But they don't come out the grounds of the
But they make sure they eat.
Right. They make sure they eat during the period.
Man, me would do the same thing, man, Minister. Me would do the same thing, man. No.
So the point is this, listen, critic, is that they are trying their darnest best to cause the PPP to look bad, as Indara said. That is it. They know that once we have more access to more money, how this place would be transformed. Without oil money, we were able to give out in 15 months 14,000 house lots. You understand? 14,000 house lots. We were able to develop maybe 10, 12 new housing areas without oil money. Without oil money, we were able to bust that road and continue the road. Without oil money, and if I can correct me, the road to be paved from Linden to Mabura is local funds, if I remember.
No, it's a mixture.
Mixture of local, at least the government.
CDB local.
But the government is investing in that. I'm trying to show you big projects that we have utilized government funding without oil money. Think about it, critic. Next year, you think you have seen a budget that worked wonders in 2021? I can assure you that the budget that the Minister of Finance and his team they're working on, you will see more wonders based on the type of programs and projects that will be developed in the health sector, education sector, social sector, housing, construction, whichever sector you think, agriculture, you think about, because as the President continues to say, oil money is to be utilized to develop all the other sectors so that we don't become a nation that is dependent on only oil money. When we have land that we can do agriculture production, once we regularize electricity and get cheap power, we can launch into manufacturing and industrialization. So that is the program. Because the oil, it has a finite day and time.
Correct.
And many countries have failed because the only focus they had was oil. For that matter, many countries, they actually got rid of some sectors.
Correct.
To focus just on oil. The Irfan Ali government will not make that mistake. And the nation, prepare yourself for the budget presentation next year, and you will be in awe about the type of projects and programs that will contribute to people's life and their welfare and their development in every community in this country, every region, regardless who they are, where they are. Because for us, we are to give service to the people of Guyana. It got nothing to do with which shirt they wear. We are the government of Guyana that must give service to the people of Guyana. And that is what we will continue to do. So, this behavior, whether they continue with it or not, we were elected to govern, and we will continue to govern.
I think Joe summed it up there.
Now, viewers, you know tomorrow the ministers, are you guys going back to Parliament tomorrow for anything?
No.
Well, you deserve a rest tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, in wrapping up, viewers, I want to thank the ministers for coming and giving an explanation. I can tell you, the way you deal with this level of hooliganism, if you were to have a program, if you all know it's going to be a nighttime program, it should have been done differently. But I can't deal with hooliganism as I wish to deal with it with ministers in the studio. Normally, you know, you gotta go, as you say, ape and just act the part, right? But I can't do it with the ministers here, so I apologize for not really bringing the real critic to you and dealing with the issues as I see it. Because I think what was more important is the ministers explaining how this administration sees itself, what really happened today from their perspective, who were there, witness, who were there, and we all witness what's going on. We see a man running with Hanuman, hammer, or whatever thing. As I see a thing, I want to know what's going on. It's mass confusion. So I had to get somebody to explain to me what's really going on, right? But I want to thank Minister Indar and Minister Hamilton for coming here, and I'm hoping, because as much as, you know, we're doing these interviews and there is a developing bias in me, and this is something I got put out there. Because before these kind of interviews, I was the guy that's beat up on everybody. But let me tell you where the bias comes from. Under the previous administration, I would call to get on to somebody to ask them for something. And I don't get. So I go up on my life and I beat them up. And everybody say, critic beat up the government and this and that. Well, let me tell you about my bias, because there is a bias. We got to lay it out there. If any one of these ministers foul up or fudge up, as I say, I will be on the case, because I have a constituency. I got to represent you people. But there is a bias, and let me tell you where it comes from. I driving down the road, and I was told of an old man who get knocked down and killed by Providence. And the driver, one of the drivers said, there's a man, critic the light. They didn't have the light on the road. I was able to call a minister and say, Minister, a man get knocked down and killed here. Now the minister asked if it's a PPP man, a PNC man, or what. 2 days after the minister called and said, you know the light, they must pass and check the light is on. So, what is my need then to come here and start a problem? For beat up on the minister? So yes, there is, because my job is to go and get for the people, highlight the people's issues. Like for instance, there was an issue in my county where the bullet get the money right. And so the bullet called me and started coming. But like the leak and hollow, critic, they must tell the minister or somebody, critic come here, we get. And the minister said, critic, you don't got to kill him, we can go together. So we can answer the problem one time. So there is a bias. I have developed a bias to some extent, and that is a matter of fact. But there is just reason for that. And in me being transparent, I gotta be honest about it. If you call me, and we're gonna start a program where we can start back a program where the people call and get issues. If you call me, I could get something done because I could call people. The last administration with King Jufi, Jaffa and them, you can't get on to nobody. You couldn't get on to nobody. And now people know me and Minister Ben is not the best of friends. It's attacking. You understand? Because I don't get what I want. When people call me, I can't get that. Now he answers his phone and says yes. So it's not everybody. But yes, there are bias that develop, not in a bad way, because of the fact that I could call on people and get things for you. And that's why I call the ministers and say, here, this is what we need to explain to these people what happened today. Yeah, come and explain to me what's going on. And I'm really glad for this opportunity of you guys coming and explaining to these people what's going on. So you got it clear as day what transpired today, and what you gotta take away, what you the citizens gotta take away from this is how you benefit, how you get. Simple as that. Thank you for tuning in to the Guyanese Critic Live, and I'm hoping to be back from January 1st, whereas we're going to have ministers in here explaining to you how you, the Guyanese people, benefit.